Om Sarva Mangla Mangle Shive Sarva Dushatike Sharanya Trambike Gauri Narayani Namostute Shristi Stiti Vinashanam Shakti Bhuti Sanatani Gunashraye Gunemaye Narayani Namostute Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Salutations to all that is auspicious, and salutations to the most auspicious of the auspicious, known as Sri Durga, Triambaka, Gauri, the Divine Mother of the universe. Salutations to her, return of salutations to her. For there shines Brahman. May that Brahman protect us, sustain us, and illumine our thinking consciousness. Free us from obstacles and impediments, reveal to us the essence of the scriptures. Om peace, peace, peace. Peace be unto us, peace be unto all. Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om Tat Sat. So we here at SRV Hawaii in this ashram welcome you on Mother's Day to the final class on the Bahvricha Upanisad, one of the 8 Mother Upanishads listed among 108. The swan among the clusters is one Upanishad talks about her in her aspect as Saraswati, who rides the white swan, the pure soul. She always comes into the pure souls and manifests herself. So on Mother's Day is a very fitting time to eulogize her, to salute her, as I just did with 2 slokas from the Chandi, or called Devi Mahatmyam, also Durga Saptasati, 700 mantras on Mother, Divine Mother. There are some few Mother scriptures in the world. In India, they reside. And that's where we go when we really want to find out about the depth, breadth, width, height, expanse, infinitude of Divine Mother reality, who we feel so deeply in our hearts. She's very natural to everything, even to the creation. Whereas if you speak about non-duality and Brahman and so forth, seems to be very distinct, as we were just saying before you all joined us, is that when you talk about Brahman and God, people sort of become silent and sit up and listen. And if you talk about things that have to do with energy, like which animates everything, causes the sun to shine and rains to fall, food to taste, and so forth, the senses, and also that energy that flows inside of our body-mind mechanism, causing our minds to expand in its knowledge, to know Brahman. Then you have something that is there to help you to know this distinct Brahman, which holds itself far away from everything material, everything that has bodies. Everything is made up of matter, energy, or thought. When we think of matter, energy, and thought, we can think of Mother at the same time. She causes all that to flow. If I think of Brahman, that stops. As we were talking about yesterday at satsang, Brahman arrests everything, like a kind of police. When we think about it, arrests the thought of our mind, arrests the prana that flows, psychic pranas cause that will cause our mind to be able to think thoughts about her, say. So that arrested condition, sometimes called kumbhaka, also happens to the breath. And we do experience it as living beings every 24 hours in deep sleep. And if we're good meditators, we can have the experience of it in a kind of samadhi or nirvana that occurs to adept practitioners. And that's what faces the preceptor, the guide, when they have to try and talk about something that's indescribable. Even Brahman, of course, um, epitomizes that word, but mother is also very hard to describe. Since she is so obvious and so present in everything, she's that much easier to overlook. And just call energy, for instance, as science is doing, or call nature as biology is doing. And other secular subjects are overlooking her. We tend to go to intelligence if we're aspirants for realization of consciousness. We tend to move towards our intelligence for that in Vedanta and Buddhism, and that is the living matra or living particle, which is in everything. Science can focus on particles of matter, but we focus on particles of mind, and there we'll find that intelligence flowing, and we'll find then the mother of intelligence holds all that wisdom inside of her. She's the Vakdevi, one of the words in which she's been called in this chart we've been using for the last three classes, is it, of the Bahvricha Upanisad, under the heading of Saham, she, I am. The Upanishad where we left off last week, in fact, we can pick it up there at Sloka 7 where we left off, straight off. It is declared either that Brahman is consciousness or that I am Brahman. In dialogue, it is said, thou art that, and this Atman is Brahman, or I am Brahman, or Brahman alone am I. Kevala asti, I'm Brahman alone. That's Sloka 7. So the Mahavakyas come out and they put them both in terms of a grand statement of truth and also a dialogue, how they can be bantered back and forth between illumined souls so they can ferret out and pull out the deep meaning in those statements, which I'm one to say is Mother herself. She's the deep meaning in those things. Without her, all the tattvas would be like clouds with no rain. What is it I was looking at yesterday? Antarvakya Adimatra Chitti Shaktini Karna Pratyagatman Shristi Anhatadvani Karana, or Anhatadvani Dharana, it's concentration. I mean, it's the inside of every word is this irrepressible power that is part and parcel of that intelligence we were just talking about. And that's how she makes herself known to intellectuals and then helps them get beyond the intellectual frame of reference. As my teacher was always want to say, Swami Asheshanandaji Maharaj, who was Holy Mother's last monastic living disciple on earth in the 1990s when I took initiation from him. So he would bring that point out and therefore point us toward that refined intellect, refined mind, or consciousness, higher thought, deeper thought, not just vidya, but paravidya. And beyond the intellectual frame of reference, beyond apara or lower knowledge, which everyone here is committed to, even sometimes obsessed with, and also trapped in. They can't get beyond that intellectual frame of reference, which is so connected in with making money, making one's living, and to getting notoriety. Notice some people you talk about Sri Ramakrishna's ability to see traits inside of people, just like their features. Find out something about somebody by the first sentence they speak to you. The question you ask is, how many times did they use the word I? Well, whenever I go somewhere, I do something, and then I'm going to do that, and I. By the time it's finished, 1/12 word sentence, he's referred himself, this small I to himself, so many times, and you can automatically know pretty much where that person's coming from. But Ramakrishna actually didn't use that word. He didn't use I, me, and mine, except when he wanted to poke fun at it. Then he would, those are one of the few English words, some of the few English words that he could say in a very interesting accent. He would say I, me, and mine in English, and people would laugh. So that's that ego element in things, the unripe ego, we call it. So in this seventh sloka, then, we're talking about the I is mentioned just once or twice in the sentence, and it really refers to the supreme I. It doesn't even refer to the supreme personality I of Ishvara, but it refers to the imperishable I, the ever perfect I, which is that divine mother presence in everything, can be there without a trace of separateness in it. And so these Mahavakyas are stated at the top in Sloka 7. Sloka 8 says, and goes on in that vein, she who is contemplated as that which I am, or I am he, or what he is, that I am, is Shodasi. It's the science of Shri, which we looked at last week, if you remember. The 15-syllabled science, the sacred Maha Tripura Sundari mantra, the virgin, the mother, Bhagala, Matangi, the auspicious one who chooses her own partner, the mistress of the worlds, Chamunda, Chanda, the power of the boar, she who veils, the royal Matangi, dark like a parrot, light dark, mounted on a horse, smoke-bannered. She is the power of Savitur in the Gayatri mantra. She is Saraswati, she is the Gayatri, and she is the greater part of that Brahmic bliss. That's a nice long sloka, which is the penultimate sloka. So we're on track today to finish this Upanishad, at least in this go-around, 4 classes. So in that way, we're subtitling this, because of such a sloka like that coming at the end, we're subtitling this multitudinous aspects of the mother and multifarious powers she has. That's what her arms signify, for instance. And her arms are a great symbol to look at. Maybe we should look at that first, because it gets to the point of these slokas very well. And we'll look back at the science of Shri and the 15-syllabled mantra in terms of powerful bijams today. We'll spend some 15 or 20 minutes on that as well. But, and this is a good chart to come up right now, because in a book called Matri Avatar, which I'm writing right now, I'm finishing up. This chart is what I'm commenting on over the last 2 or 3 days in that book. So it's one that has to do with how this all-pervasive and simultaneously hidden mother appears as everything in everything, gives it its existence. Even if people just run their eye over things and don't specify the differences, don't really take anything into detail, and look too deeply behind what gives everything its existence. Not just the power of the sun to shine, for instance, but the power of shining itself. Look so deep into that they will find her all-pervasive presence abiding there in everything. And they will see it at all levels of existence, those 3 levels, Tripura Sundari levels, 3 different cities, 3 different classifications of it, 3 different worlds, 3 different states of consciousness called waking, dreaming, deep sleep. They'll see that all of that is her divine play and her sport. And she maintains it and keeps it up effortlessly, and draws beings towards it unerringly with her her heart's love, and her mind's eye wisdom. So when you cite some powerful slokas out of an Upanishad like that, there should be something to follow it like this. You can see that we're talking about her many arms in terms of being multifarious, how many things she can hold at once. We were laughing with the old joke last week at Satsang or God blogs about how can you, eat an ice cream and rub the top of your head at the same time. Or are you going to start to do this and get a mess all over your face? Or make a circle in the air and eat ice cream. And then somebody tells you to make a square and then a tetrahedron. And, can you still keep eating the ice cream without it following the motion of the other hand? So this is what she does so marvelously. She keeps so many things going at once. So we're using that word multifarious in terms of these many arms there. And I made some assignments for that have to do with tattvas that are very subtle. You can see there's the hourglass in a lower right-hand arm. So she's the goddess of time. Time makes everything dance. Time makes everything flow or come to a stop when it's absent. So it's one of the great tattvas. It's got two aspects in the 36 tattva list of Shaivism. One's called kala, where time itself, where does that come from? How does time initiate? Or where did it disappear in deep sleep or in samadhi? Or when everything went into mahapralaya, time stopped. Nobody was aware of it anymore. And then it has kalas, how time breaks into phases. And we're pretty good at making increments out of time these days. Multi-seconds, seconds, minutes, hours, days, months, years, lifetimes, and all the way up to ages, mahayugas, yugas and mahayugas. So that goddess of time, that's one of the things she holds in her power. And that British are enamored with science and saying something like, she I am. They looked at everything and found her in everything, and then finally looked at themselves and couldn't exclude themselves from everything and found out that she was there. You know how Sri Ramakrishna put that, pointing to his own divine consort and wife, Sri Sharda Devi. Without her, I can't even lift my finger. So he was very much in evidence and obvious about that fact that Shakti power was in him and doing everything. And that would be in the place of the thought that the ego was doing things instead, the unripe ego. Interesting enough, there's an hourglass, there's also a clock. So I thought about that for a while and I thought, well, the clock is a perfect way, especially when it stops for all time, to give evidence to what we call the eternal moment. When everything stops. It's like your breath stops when you draw in, right? And there's a moment there where you hold, called kumbhaka, and then you exhale, and then at the bottom of your exhale, called rechaka, then there's another moment where nothing happens, and then you draw in again. So there's this pause in everything, and that's what the yogis, when they meditate, like to get a hold of that pause and expand it. That's one meaning for the eternal moment. How does that eternal moment surpass time and cycles of time, kala and kalas? How does she do that? So they found that way to arrest time again, just like Brahman arrests all thoughts when you see it or experience it. So both of those are very powerful, multifarious forces in her. Then you see there are two lotuses, basically. One is the lotus of perfection that she bears in the upper right-hand arm, and then she's dancing on the lotus of myriad worlds. Sometimes they call that 1,000-petaled silver lotus. In some traditions, you're asked to meditate on that here in your heart. Imagine 1,000-petaled lotus of silver color. Walk towards it, it opens, and there's your Ishtam, who you like to meditate on and have relation with, have communion with, have darshan with. And then that focus will arrest everything that's going on around you or in your mind, thought-wise. and you'll be poised in that state of Mahakumbhaka, and you'll have a beatific vision, as they call it in some traditions. So that is where her feet rest. And that brings this beautiful here in the middle. It says, when the divine feet make contact with the firmament of unmanifested nature, the sanctifying energy of conscious awareness infuses it. So that gets us back to the point of the title. How does Kundalini animate everything? We know that tattvas are earth, air, fire, water, and ether, tasting, touching, hearing, smelling, seeing, and so forth and so on, the fourfold mind. And we're naming some cosmic topics here when we talk about time and space. So how does she infuse all of that and keep it in order? I mean, she even keeps chaos in order. I was writing about that today. So that chaos to her is a mere loosing of everything that can now have its fair play without any boundaries, and as long as she lets it out to recess. But as soon as she wants to call it back in, she'll bring it back into harmony based on unity. So chaos, harmony, unity, all of these three she holds in her multifarious powers. And so that's where one foot rests in the myriad worlds. When she touches them, because they're all made out of insentient material called Prakriti, when she touches them with that foot, everything springs into action. Everything gets animated. Everything starts its cycle. Everything begins to flow. Everything begins to rise and fall. Everything begins to revolve and evolve and devolve. Then we're looking at her other foot poised in the air, and unlike Shiva, she isn't pointing toward it. Shiva does that dance of Pandava dance and so forth, Tandava dance, and he points to that foot, says, see that foot, take refuge there, you'll be saved. So she extends her beautiful foot out to all these myriad beings in the world if they want to transcend the world, and they can come to her feet of bliss, love, light, and peace, and live in her world, in her three worlds, really. Tripura Sundari, which we just chanted here. She is the sacred Maha Tripura Sundari, the Virgin, the Mother. This is, of course, where someone like me has a lot of fun. And so just looking at a beautiful image like this and say, oh, that means that, that means that, that means that. I don't know what that means necessarily, but I can imagine what it means. I can meditate on it, and she might reveal what it means to me. So all of that comes forth in a beautiful murti like this. She's holding what usually is a skull cup. The skull cup is a skeleton of the head, and Chinnamasta, she's mentioned here, for instance, one of the great aspects of Mother Durga, drinks the blood from that skull cup. Means she's self-sustaining and relies on nothing else but herself to sustain herself. We said that here, right? She's mistress of the world. So this is why she relies on no one else and nothing else to keep her operations moving forward based on her supreme will. So there you see that's the giver of immortal nectar, basically. If you see Mother drinking out of her skull cup, delicately approach her and say, can I have a drop? Pour a drop on my tongue, because the drop of that Amrit, it's called, turns a man into a god and a woman into a goddess. One great soul told me once, before he passed away, there are much better things to be than a human being, Babaji. So I've thought about that a long time. Of course, there are much worse things to be too. Watching drought in Africa the other day, herds of animals without water, just plodding along in the dirt. Hippopotamus, is it hippopotami? Elephants, prides of lions, baking in the sun, dying of thirst with no food. An animal life. See? So there are much worse things to be than human beings, and how much suffering goes on in the animal kingdom, what to speak of the human. So a drop of that nectar then is going to change things radically. It'll nourish the mind and drive it towards higher thought, higher sustenance. She has a wand there because this Upanishad just said, what was it so nicely? She who veils. Did you hear that? It went by. She who veils. Veils, yeah, pulls down the veil of things. We know that power is called avarana. All the lips in the room moved and they all knew that word because I've made sure they do. Avarana is the veiling power. And that veiling power, even though she's so obvious in everything, that veiling power is what keeps her distinct from their understanding of the object. Science and so forth focus on the object right on down to the particle, yet she evades their look, their gaze. That's the veiling power, is that she veils herself until she wants it to be revealed. And she reveals herself to those who seek peace and transcendence and want to get beyond suffering and want to realize her and become saham, be able to use that one word, two-syllable mantra to the greatest effect. See, saham, she I am. So if the missiles started coming out of the sky, as they very well could these days, and you had a few seconds to say goodbye to everything here, that would be probably the best word to come to your mind, along with your mantra, of course. Unless that is your mantra, saham, she am I. The power, mere power in a nuclear missile cannot destroy the power in the Atman, the Divine Mother power. On the right-hand side, we look at that blade of wisdom. No sword in this goddess image right now, but she's got that blade of sharpest wisdom. And she also has a dagger that she's sporting. I call that benign destruction. So she'll cut away everything from souls that are superfluous and unneeded and unwanted, that are outdated, that are overdue, and that are hanging on too long, have lived their life, and they can be done away with and dispensed with. There you see that bolt of power that's emanating actually in all directions. That's one of the things that I superimposed on this image, is that wasn't there before, that bolt. But I wanted to say that that's how she infuses tattvas with this, as it were, bolt of Shakti, pure Shakti energy. She'll flash it, set it off like a dynamite stick. And that will infill in an instant everything. And she could also turn that off and take everything away so everything falls flat and dead. Insentient things go back to insentience, where they came from. Prakriti goes back to unmanifested Prakriti, and the soul goes back to its essence in Brahman. We certainly hope that's the case with individuals. So that keeper of the possessor of the blade of sharpest wisdom, the deliverer of the dagger of benign destruction, and of course that keeper of the bolt of purest power are there on her right-hand side. And Shiva Shakti are very close to that. They're actually in those bolts of lightning, doing all of her work, taking care of all her multifarious powers, as we're calling them here. And then there's the bell of completeness or wholeness that we find in Sri Durga's hands, what I just chanted to start this class, that bell drives away negativities and attracts positivities. The souls hear that and come running to her, knowing that she's making an appearance, finally, in the realms of name and form, as she did in this age with Sri Sharda Devi. the Holy Mother. The four padas of Shiva are listed there on the left-hand side of the chart. That's the four kinds of activities that she keeps up through animating or bringing Lord Shiva out of the transcendent realm into the practical realm. Then she'll bring teachings, she'll bring out of the scriptures, and she'll bring beings that can explain those teachings. She'll bring beings that will sustain those teachings, and all the way through the four ages. So that even here in this Kali Yuga, we can pick up 10 sloka Upanisad and extract so much out of it, even though we don't have that much wherewithal about esoteric things that are thousands of years old. That's her power of intelligence that's able to communicate everything in that level. So very well put here in this chart, basically. If she's standing on this myriad of worlds, then underneath it is what the worlds are all made of. Her feet make contact with everything that's in abiding, everything that's in potential, everything that's in abeyance, and those things sprout and begin their cycles, as I said. So you could see there, the sentient side of it is more in the center. The Purushas, that is the eternal souls, the Mahat, the great mind, which could be Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, could be defined as Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, or another word we've learned, Aranyagaba, the cosmic egg, where all these worlds are contained in. And then finally, the Antakarana, the inner organ, which out of come 20 things. The tanmatras, the pranas, the five active senses, and the five cognizant senses, right? Senses of knowledge and senses of action, they're called. All of those things come out of this mind. So you can see that even if you're concentrated just there, which most beings are doing in this day and age, only they're calling it brain instead of mind. If you concentrated on the mind and you took into account and added in wisely all the powers of the mind that haven't been manifested yet, then you'll find out there's an unmanifested Prakriti, but there's also an unmanifested mind. That's the Mahat. So finding your way back to that is going to be of highest efficacy for the soul. Friend in high places, we call that. There you'll find the deities are abiding. In the meantime, it's a bit more difficult to find them abiding, but you can find deities abiding in all the tattvas too. That's what indigenous cultures have done. That's what India has done. That's what the American Indians did. Find these deities of fire, air, earth, water, and so forth, and have a communion with them. Bring them out and have darshan with them. They may be limited in their scope to reflect pure conscious awareness. But nonetheless, there's a kind of darshan that will happen in that regard. And there you see them listed in two gems, two emeralds, as it were. Manifested and unmanifested Prakriti, I've been mentioning already. It's one of the great secrets we don't know yet, just like we don't know prana and psychic prana very well yet. We also need to learn about that manifested nature comes out of seeds that are beyond the physical. Here, even in manifested Prakriti, things come out of seeds and go back to seeds. So it shouldn't be a hard stretch for us to understand that those seeds that are coming out of seeds in the physical are coming out of seeds in the mind, called thought. And that thought is where this intelligence dwells, and that thought intelligence belongs to the goddess of the word. She infuses everything with intelligence, all the tattvas. So the secret of her that she presents to us is not that difficult. Some of it will have to be a matter of faith. That you'll have to go beyond the mundane, the conventional, the superficial, the pleasure-bound, and the external only, and develop some faith that all of these tattvas out here have a source, an origin that is not themselves. You see, we have an advantage as knowledge. If we have knowledge of our Atman, is we look at our source and we say, "Oh, that's myself," but nature can't do that. Tattvas don't have a nature that's eternal, for one thing, and they don't come from themselves. They're not of their own accord. So unmanifested Prakriti is the source for manifested Prakriti. It's hidden, it's not seen, it's back in the mind. And generative power all forward is the responsibility of that divine entity, a power of thought, of originated creative thought, springs forth spontaneously from that divine entity, the Tantras say. That's her we're talking about, the Tripura Sundari, all those names that we said. And that's how she infuses everything with conscious awareness, including the three bodies. We know that they're external, internal, and transcendent bodies. The three worlds are gross, subtle, and causal too. The 5 types of space are there listed. That is Bhutakasha, Pranakasha, Chitakasha, Jnanakasha, and Chidakasha. 5 kinds of space, and so far we're only limited to knowing about one of them in this day and time in the West, called the Bhutakasha, the space of physical objects. We haven't found our way into the space of subtle energy, primal energy yet, and seen it flow. We haven't found our way into the subtle body of the mind and seen it produce things, that it's the source of all of this. And then we haven't found our way then back into the intelligence of the mind that's allowing it thoughts to come to produce things. All objects are just consciousness made manifest. They're all made of consciousness. You're just going to have to not trip over the stages in which things manifest and express themselves. You have to see the continuity of the flow back to the source, and not get put off by an apparent blockage or a stoppage of the flow, and just wait it out, because consciousness can observe that. Like I say, matter can't. It'll just fall back into its unmanifested insentient position again. But consciousness, watching matter do that, can wait it out and go to the next level, which would be a prana. Man does not live by bread alone. I waited out my hunger. I waited out my lack of energy. All of a sudden, I found out that I had a supply of vital energy inside of me that I could tap into. And that, when I tapped into it, I saw the God of the sun. I saw the God of the moon. I saw the God of rain. I saw the God of the 5 gods and goddesses of the 5 elements. And that prana is their territory. So that I waited out and found the next space. Then after that, I found the space of my own mind, the space of intelligence, find a her space, the Antarvestini, they call that, or Saraswati Nadi, they call it. Saraswati Kechana. There's got so many beautiful esoteric words to her realm, where yogis find themselves attracted to. So the 3 gunas also come into manifestation and go back into abeyance at her behest. Rajas, tamas, and sattva, in other words. And if you come to know her and surrender yourself to her, then she'll show you how to master those 3 gunas, so that you're not going to be constantly in cycles of revolution, like Krishna says in the Gita. You see, those who have rajas, they just circle in the same place. Those who have tamas, they fall. Those who have sattva, they rise. So many beings circling in that rajasic cycle are just staying in one place while they get restless and go round and round in their minds, without having even discovered the space of the mind yet, and how to use it and actualize it for seeing the entire picture. Like, oh, there are 5 types of space and 3 bodies. I've now adopted those, and the mother has given me knowledge of them. 10 fundamental tenets of Samkhya, 9 complacencies of Samkhya, 8 great accomplishments of Samkhya yoga. We all started out in SRV 35 years ago or more, and I myself started before then, studying the Samkhya yoga system of Lord Kapila so that it got imprinted on my mind. And therefore I can look at everything now with that as my backdrop. Tattvas are, that's the word tattva, that we can only find a substitute word in English word called principle. You know, they're like principles, cosmic principles, because there's not anything very ordinary about seeing, hearing, touching, tasting, and smelling. Those are very high order of senses. Animals don't have them refined, and plants don't have them at all. So we're talking about cosmic principles when we're talking about sight, hearing, taste, touch, and smell. You just have to take them off their objects so that they'll not be mundane anymore. And you can place them on subtle objects. That's contemplation, manana. You know, now I'm contemplating on subtle truths. And before I was just brooding on gross objects. It didn't get me anywhere. On the other side, the jewel there has some more of these hattvas or principles to look at that she animates. Triple bondages and triple liberations happen to people. Evolution and involution is always going on. Unfortunately, today we only have evolution, so we've been bereft or stripped of that beautiful teaching of returning to the source. We're stuck out here in the body, in the physical world, with the 5 objects and the 5 outgoing senses attached to them at the behest of pleasure and pain, and therefore at the behest of success and failure, therefore at the success and contentment and brooding dualities that are going on. And so in that way, if you were able to add involution into your vocabulary first, sancharaha, prati sancharaha, it was said in the ancient Samkhya, there's a evolution of things, tattvas going out, all the way down to the worlds, right, that she animates from the highest to the lowest. But then there should be, and there is, a return, involution of all tattvas back to their source. That's the important thing that we haven't had in our scriptures or in our westernized religions telling us that. And it's called wisdom. It's not going to be given by faith-based traditions or traditions that teach devotion only without the wisdom that clarifies it. In that way, then, we're very fortunate to have Vivekananda here with us, bringing us that deepest level of wisdom to add into our hopefully already growing love of the Lord and adoration of the Divine Mother. When you hear about her, then you can't help but rush to her. There's a song, I came to my guru, I saw a strange thing. He was worshiping image of the Divine Mother. I didn't know anything about the Divine Mother. Then now I find myself worshiping her too, because I saw him doing so. So this is how we get by example a great soul like that. Up here you have it, right? I chanted it the first class back there, right? I'll praise, my understanding is of so little worth. 'Twere like desire to seize with hands of mine the sole supporter of the universe. She supports everything, all universes. The sole supporter of the universe. So there at thy blessed feet, O Mother, worshipped by the goddess of fortune herself, Shri, and the abode of fearlessness, Worship by service true. There at those feet, O Mother, I take refuge. Written by Vivekananda when he came here to give us an idea of how deep his adoration for the goddess is. So anyway, back to evolution and involution. Without her, then we wouldn't feel like returning to a source. Does it sound familiar? Here we're all being born and dying, and we think death is the end. So there's no God to go back to or no source to go to. If there is a God, then he's blocked by heaven, you see, which is just another level of pleasure and pain uh, and rebirth. So if we knew that there was a source of origin that was all loving, all compassionate, all kind, and all fulfilling, then we would make this involution possibly even before we got very much involved in evolution. You know the old stories about Divine Mother in one particular age forgot to give Lord Brahma the seeds of Maya to put into everyone's head. And so everyone came into the body, we don't want this, and gave up the body right away. So Lord Brahma was stunned. He went back to the Divine Mother and said, they don't want the next phase of creation. They all saw it in all its beauty, in all its empty beauty, we might say, and then gave up the body on the spot. Oh, she says, darn, I forgot to give you the seeds of Maya, to put into the manifestation, into their minds. Take it over and do it again, my dear, and make sure these seeds are planted there. And then when they came out into the worlds that she animates with her blessed feet, and then they saw it, they loved it, and they got very much enamored of it and got into more and more of them. Pretty soon they were beginning to create worlds that she didn't even plan for them to have, like worlds of suffering, worlds of delusion, worlds of attachment to wealth, worlds of attachment to power and domination, worlds of attachment to war. No, I didn't want those. And that was the monkey mind doing that of humanity. And the asuras. So involution, we need to put, probably if I were to point out any of these things, we need to know, put involution back in the quotient. We need to find out about unmanifested prakriti. If we find out about unmanifested prakriti, then we find out that we're not to blame for any of this. We're pure Atman. We don't have anything to do with nature. Nature should be our bondslave, if anything. And that's going to settle so many problems and impediments and sufferings and bondages. It's going to prevent solutions to everything that is a problem, anything that's left over. So I'd say of all the things I've researched and come in contact with, teaching-wise, of the Mother's abundance of wisdom, those two I've found in this day and age, in this country, or in this world particularly, we need to see unmanifested prakriti as the source of everything here, and at the same time making sure that we're not believing in some physical void that everything goes back into. Everything goes back into her as consciousness, and she manages the seeds. The seeds start out as flowers, eggs, beets, and then they effloresce when she plants them and animates them with Kundalini power. So anyway, I just pause here to say those two things, whenever I go through a list like this, are the things in Adi Daiva Vidya that I wish that the West would adopt and then adapt to. Adi Daiva Vidya, the original divine knowledge of India, from the seers who saw all of this from their meditation. There's these 5 forms of prana, 5 kinds of ignorance, 5 hells. There's 6 transformations: birth, growth, disease, old age, decay, and death. Transformation doesn't happen in the soul. It only happens in nature. So all 6 of those are not to be worried about. They're to be seen as an appearance going on due to her wand, right? She veils. You're an eternal being, but I'm not going to let you know that yet because you won't have a good time sporting and playing unless I veil this. I'll just say it's time to home. So then we find out that we can't die because we were never born. Nam Richor Nashanka, Name Jati Beda. I could sing it as I often do. No death have I because I've never had a birth, Shankara sings. There are 3 types of karma to study, 6 infirmities, and 8 persistent enemies that we look at in that particular system. And there are, of course, other antarayas, vikshepas, kleshas, and blockages in other philosophical systems that are noted. Atas tattva samasaha ashtau prakritayaha shodashi vikaraha purushaha trigunyam sanchara prati sanchara, and so forth. This paragraph you see at the bottom of the chart is what's left of Samkhya Yoga in Sanskrit. It mentions all of these things, and it's Kapilava's gift to us, his homework he did to show us what the non-self is. Later, teachers like Patanjali, the father of yoga, and Shankara of Advaita Vedanta got a hold of those, the Shaivites, and 30, added 12 more to them, 36 of them in all, and to show us the changing non-self, everything that transforms, everything that evolves and then involves, everything that comes out of unmanifested Prakriti. All those things were given to us by that great sage Kapila. That's why Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, of all sages, I am Kapila, Arjuna. So his favorite manifestation as Ishvara in a form was in the early days as Lord Kapila, who gave us the 24 cosmic principles, Adi Daiva Vidya, way back when. We're still looking at them today and saluting. Only thing to say about this chart further is that on both sides of the chart, I put these graphs, which I often do. First of all, in the thicker font is the 4 phases of the word Om. It starts out unmanifest completely, that is, and then it goes into a Pashanti phase where it starts to manifest things in terms of thought and intelligence, goes into Madhyama phase where aspects of it have to be pulled together, like sound, meaning, word, and prana, energy, have to congeal everything into the middle phase of things, and then it turns into a solid phase, which is what we're seeing right now. We're seeing the word of pure intelligence that belongs to the Divine Mother of the Universe at its grossest and densest state right now, when we use the 5 senses to look out upon all this plethora of objects without seeing her, unfortunately. So maybe we can plug in some of these great tattvas and then begin to relook at the 4 stages of the word and find out more about it, and find out that it has these 3 phases inside of itself too: Vyapi, Samasti, and Vyasti. That is, there's a cosmic, there's a collective, and there's an individual level of things going on in the worlds below her feet. If we look at the collective, for instance, we look at all beings who have a mind. The first thing that would occur to us would be humans and ancestors and the wheel they're on, samsaric wheel they're on. That would be a good look at collective mind, how the collective mind is fixated on this restless cycle that we just talked about. Sri Krishna's calling, circling in Rajas all the time. So they're born in Rajas, they live in Rajas, they die in Rajas many, 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 many times. They circle around in that guna which she herself will free you from if you go to her and understand things correctly. So the collective mind, the individual mind, which is our own mind we have to take of, and then the cosmic mind of the Trinity has to be looked at inside of all of this manifestation. So that's spread out across this whole chart. On the other side, we have her 4 powers, her 4 Shaktis, they're called. She is the Mahashakti. At the top there, you see her will, Icha Shakti. And then in the larger font, underneath that, Jnana Shakti, the power of her intelligence. Then Kriya Shakti, the power of her amazing activity, multifarious activity, we're saying. And finally, at the very bottom of that fourfold teaching, how she can produce substances, almost like out of that wand again, sleight of hand, to produce a substance, congeal it, make the individual get enamored of it and veil it at the same time, and then unveil it. Also distort it in terms of some beings. If you want the asuras to stay away from something, distort it, make it look like something undesirable. Right now, this highest wisdom is undesirable to most people. The gurus, the acharyas, the preceptors are finding out. It's not that desirable to know these kinds of things. But we find all the secrets, plus her, in these very things, and get free by them. And then in the smaller font, there's another full forward teaching. There's Shakti, there's psychic prana, there's prana, and then there is, down at the bottom there, you see mukhya prana. So a very gross kind of prana, the 5 forward pranas that we saw over here, and then the psychic prana, which is that power in the mind that circulates your thinking and your thoughts, and then Shakti herself. It's an inward ladder of ascension we talked about at satsang yesterday. That's how to make these connections in a very swift and more at ease way. So I see the gross prana. Now I have to take the prana into my senses. I see that. Now I see that same prana in a subtler form in my mind, thinking about it. If I can turn that thought away from the 5 pranas of the senses and the mukhya prana of the objects, then I can turn it inward and I can see the Shakti at the foundation of it all. So you think everything is produced by the mind, it can be unproduced by the same mind. Take some aid from her to do that. That brings us up to sloka 9, and that's the last sloka of this Upanishad. And I'll use that at the end to end this class series. In the meantime, I told you that we would look a little bit at her words of power. Now, this is, of course, something that can be looked back on and contemplated on many, that is, multifarious aspects of her power that she holds in balance in an eternal moment in all phases of time. Probably the best way of saying it in a condensed way. And then all the things that fall under her purview when she animates them. It'd be like a juggler adding another thing in and then another thing and keeping this whole bunch of things till pretty soon you're looking at this circus clown or something, and somebody keeps throwing him another ball and he adds it into the flow, and pretty soon he's got like 6, 8, 10, 12 things going around and he's managing them perfectly. Very good analogy for how she has all of these higher powers, and then when the lower powers come forth from her by the touch of her animating prana and feet, then she also balances those and keeps them in abundance. Things get out of hand, you have her to pay for it. See, there's hell to pay. In her wrathful form, she'll come and see how you've desecrated the beautiful tattvas that she's created. And those are unfortunate souls that have to pay. for that. It's best to be in harmony and in oneness with her will, her Icha Shakti. Now, just to give a little bit more clout to the Bahvricha Upanishad, is that we're talking about in Sloka 7 again, all these Mahavakyas, right? Well, there's the word Mahavakya. It's a seed word, and we've often said about bijams that it's very difficult to define them in any language, because they belie and go beyond the limitation of sentences and paragraphs. Very difficult even to find one word. So if you say, the word Lakshmi, then you'd think abundance. Say Saraswati, you'd think wisdom, and so forth. So there are correlations that can be made, generally speaking. But the bijams are even different than names of divinities, because they're responsible for the unbridled expression that's going to come from them, from their own contents, as it effloresces out due to the will of this divine entity. Irrepressible power that's in everything that she places there. And so when she thinks about it, as we just talked about, thinking about, thinking our way in towards her in our meditations, then she does that same thing on a grand scale, causes everything to effloresce and come and express itself. So it all comes then from seed words, like that seed word we just talked about that she forgot to give Brahma in that one cycle, Maya. Forgot to give you the seed of Maya. Put that in there quick so another cycle can go forward. It's like that. It's that subtle. In the time remaining, we can look at some of these. There is a series of classes, I think, that can be found, maybe on a seminar. Some of you might have taken that seminar where we used this chart already. It was a seminar about, or a retreat, or both, about bijams. Seed, really, word is the one word we can use is seed. And it has to do basically with mantra and guru and practice. I was reading the Yoga Kundalini Upanishad quite deeply last night, going back to it again, reading it again, all the various things that are propounded in there. And one of the things I kept coming up with that was made more simple of all the esoteric knowledge in that Upanishad, some of it very, very old and hard to comprehend, was this repetition always of the mantra, your practice, and the guru. That always came back up, as if, we can't put all of this into words like she did, but we can tell you this much, that if you go to those beings who have practiced based upon these words, then you'll get a deeper definition, deeper meaning to them. You'll get an expansion of knowledge from them. So that's why those three have this eternal connection. The mantra, or with its bijam, the preceptor or guru, and your practice. If you're a little short on practice, then those first two become even more important. It's called holy company, or sadhu satsanga. This first quote actually explains this better. When the mantra is received from an exemplary guru, both karmas and future lifetimes swiftly become a thing of the past. That's a good thing, by the way, when karmas start to subside and you don't have to worry about or look towards a future lifetime of uncertainty. If you're enlightened, then you're never born. You just appear as a ray from the Divine Mother. Ramprasad sings, no more birth in the womb of matter for me, only emanation from my Divine Mother. So that's a lifetime of an illumined soul. They're not thinking about when I lived before and I'm going to live again. They're in that eternal moment, right? That we see in her, held in her hand up there in the clock. They're living in that eternal moment. So coming and going is not actual to them. It's veiled. It's that veiling power goes hand in hand with that, and they just appear and disappear at her will. Further, as mantra practice matures over time, it inevitably befriends that best of destroyers of ignorance called jnanam. Thus, the secret of an exemplary guru is that he or she delivers the mantra to the ready aspirant in a timely fashion, and it is permeated with wisdom that is set to infuse the human mind like a slow-release medicine in the bloodstream. And over my 35 years of some experience with initiating people here in the West and in India, and I found out some of that's true myself, is that the mantra has a long period. They say, I don't know what happened to them. That makes the case. Siddhis call it the Antura Sundari. Is one way of explaining that. But the more they keep at it, then the more they're looking back and finding out how effective the mantra was to bring them to the place they are in this moment. Pretty soon you're in the eternal moment. You see what I'm saying? So all of time begins to fade. 3 phases of time, past, present, and future. Trikaladarshi, it's called. Shiva puts those all into a state of balance, and you come more and more closer to that eternal moment and live in that. That can be seen from a standpoint of adept mantra practice, and maybe even beyond practice, possession of the secret of the bijam in the mantra. Like we're looking at here, you can see there are many bijams strewn across that mind. It's not just a skull, it's not just a brain, but it's a mind. And that's all those languages and form of letters are in it. And she arranges them like Om, like looking back again, right? Para, Pashanti, Madhyama, Vaikari. That's a very simple way of putting the 4 phases of Om. But what happens in each of those phases is not so simple. Very, very complex, very, very interactive, very, very much under the purview of her, that this word operates the way it does and keeps everything in balance, as we say. She juggles all of that and impregnates it with inner meaning too. So you see there, the chart is really set up around these, what we've already looked at here in the last chart, these 4 kinds of space. We actually call them 5 kinds of space, but here 4 of them are listed. There's the akasha of physical space called bhutakasha. And then on the left-hand side, you see the akasha of, on the top, you see the akasha of inner space, manokasha. I'm putting physical and vital together here, bhutakasha, pranakasha. So there actually are 5. So 1, 2 kinds of space, then the mental space of the mind, manokasha, and then on the far right there is the akasha of living intelligence called the jnanakasha. These are distinctive but interconnected realms of space. We have to think beyond the physical space, like planets in the sky and the void and physical matter, physical ether. We have to look beyond that, turn and look inside to know that, for instance, in our dreams tonight, we entered into these kinds of space. Physical space was gone to us. We were not walking on earth anymore. We were walking in on vital energy, or we were walking on the wings of the mind. And we weren't motioning in physical space anymore with our arms. We were motioning in the space of intelligence. So after fashion of those, came back to our right state, and then we returned from the space here to consciousness. So you have to be that free thinking and let go of the anchor that your conventional mind and conventional wisdom and conventional religion has bound you with. And that's how soul gets free and flies in the Chitakasha, That's the next one. Sri Ramakrishna said, I call it the Mahakasha. That's the Chitakasha, which is the Akasha of non-dual reality. It's ecstatic bliss and of freedom there. So with those 5 kinds of space all around, as instanced in this chart, when she's talking about the 5 kinds of space here in the tattvas, then we can look at some of these bijams. Hold on to your hats here, because in the time remaining, we want to just give a good idea of this. There's at the top there, I'm. That's the wisdom sound. Deity is Saraswati. There's Hum, dissolution, bijam of Lord Shiva. He brings everything to close, right? Dissolves everything. That's the word he will use when he does it. Klim, the desire or longing, the god Indra fulfills everything with that bijam. On the left-hand side going down, Shrim, the fulfillment bijam of Lakshmi. All she has to do is think that. If you want, the full mantra, then you have to go to the teacher. Shrim, Hrim, Klim, Aim, Kama Vashande Swaha. That's the mantra for Lakshmi. And that's going to grant everything fulfillment plus wealth and jewels. You'll get all of those things in the world, as well as the spiritual wealth that shows you that these things of the world are not nearly as important as her, and as higher wisdom, and as love, and as compassion for others' suffering. Those are the real jewels. There's Ganesha's bijams. If you want auspiciousness, things to happen well, then start saying in your mind Gum or Glom. Yeah. Next time you have a problem out in the world, just think of him, the one-tusked elephant god, Gajananana Harnisham, the Gajananana Padmarkam. You could think of his mantras and think of him, bring him to mind, say his bijam, and then direct it at that problem and dissolve it. Know it's gone. Dissolve it right there in the spot. Krim is a bijam particular to Kali when she helps the soul transcend Maya and transcend form. Like Sri Ramakrishna's beautiful mention in our God blog yesterday about when Sri Ramakrishna first saw Varanasi from a boat. He saw the burning dot there, and bodies were burning. And he stood there transfixed, and he saw Shiva, a tall white person covered with ashes, walking around, picking up the corpses and breathing there. He's the one of Brahman, and raising him from future lifetimes from Varanasi there. And further he looked, and he saw Mother Kali on the other side of the corpse, or on the other side of the cremation ground, snapping their bonds, so that once the mantra was given to them, they could pass beyond this world of physical birth and death, 6 transformations, right? And pass beyond that and go to their liberation. So Shiva and Shakti were working together there. It's much like you might find a good Shiva guru who can give you the mantra and you go on reciting it, but nothing much happens for decades. But what if you had Mother Kali snap your bondages and then you used the mantra? It would be an entirely different thing, wouldn't it? So take the Parama Shakti and Parama Shiva and put them together in a good teacher, like we had in Sri Ramakrishna and Swami Vivekananda and others. Then you've got the grounds and the means for total liberation. Mukti, moksha will come to you at her behest, at her right timing. So Krim would be a bijam there. Dum is the power bijam of Durga. And across the board, Ksham, inception of Lord Brahma. So we were talking about Divine Mother coming and saying, oh, I forgot to give you the seed for Maya. Go and take back the creation and start it over again. So he's going to dissolve it back in. He's going to ask Shiva to say whom. and then that'll dissolve the creation back in an instant. And then he'll think of his bijam called Kshom, and he'll think of that, and everything gets incepted from her feet there, you see, and begin to effloresce out. Manifested Prakriti will produce all of the five elements and the five senses and the bodies and the planets and all the worlds, the three worlds that we're talking about here. And then sentient souls will come into bodies and take up birth there in those worlds after Kshram is said by Lord Brahma. And then, of course, who will sustain that? There'll be other bijams there in terms of different deities that will sustain that. For instance, when love is at hand, then Ram would be the wonderful bijam. And when wisdom is at stake, then Brim, the bijam of Brihaspati, that is the teacher of the gods, Brihaspati, will come into revelation. Om is there, of course, that's Brahman itself. Hrim is the transformation bijam of Mother herself, Mahamaya. And Hom is the consummation bijam of Sadashiva. So some of these bijams are strewn out here. And bija akshara, that means eternal, right? It's going. They don't come and go. They're not destroyed and incepted. They're always there in the minds of these great souls. They're held there. All they need to do is thought about and then uttered, and that will be a part of that juggling act that Mother handles so well. That each of the deities are making sure that each of those tattvas are impregnated with her power and are moving in harmony in their various distinctive cycles inside of cycles. And this can come right down to just basic earth. Lam, Vam, Ram, Yam, and Hum. When we studied the Darshana Upanishad and other Upanishads, we look at the Kundalini yoga science too. We find out that these are there are bijams for each chakra to open the chakra and release Kundalini into higher chakras. So that's also the case with not only the elements themselves, but the deities of the elements who have these words impressed in them from the inception. Here at the bottom is another quote. Among spiritual ideals, the best is an exemplar. Amidst purificatory practices, the best is the mantra. Similar to Vedanta and the classic eight-limb yoga in philosophical systems, mantra yoga and jnana yoga are one of the best spiritual hybrids in the realm of self-effort. You put this mantra together with that jnanam that you're getting in class and transmission, that's going to be the best of all combinations of philosophical systems that you can receive and utilize. They'll be utilized for both lifting, transmigrating souls up and out of suffering in Maya, plus returning them to their original pristine condition of union with Brahman. So that's where we have this, back to this evolution out. Oops, I'm stuck. No, you're not. Turn and look at the original again. Look at your own mind, who has all of these gods and all of these bijas in it, your Atman, and draw yourself back by dissolving the mind stream of all of its insentient material, all of its weights. Cast off that luggage and that weight and move back in your meditation to this state of freedom that's blissful and all pervasive. And that's Mother's intention for you. Could see that I put there a few pertinent sayings of the Holy Mother in the middle of the chart there about this art of Anahata Dvani, or sometimes called Shabda Brahman, the art of divine sound, and how that's so pertinent, but also so necessary for the soul to know about, the soul that wants to get freedom. Words can bind, but these words can liberate. We have to keep that in mind. She says, for instance, as you turn the direction of the world's mind through spiritual practices, that mind itself will be able to grasp the chosen deity. So if you get a mantra from the guru, you might not really think that highly of your guru. Happens. And you can also not think that highly of the science of mantra or the dharma or the jnanam that you're getting from the guru. But as you turn the direction of the mind by using the mantra, things change. All of a sudden, you love the guru as the enlightened soul who's helping you when no one else would in the world. And you love the Divine Mother who sent him to you. And you love the Dharma and the Jnanam that's helping save you in this lifetime, that you can find no other thing to compare with in the world. How long can you sit and think about love, unless you're in bliss? Not very long, but you can sit and think about wisdom for a long, long time. And that light of wisdom will dawn upon you and keep you occupied inside of your own mind if you turn its direction. So it's a very powerful saying she has here. People can get a mantra and think the same old way for a long time. Oh, I hope the mantra works, but I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. Thinking wrong, acting wrong, not studying the scriptures, not doing my puja daily, as Swami Vivekananda said. I'll just be the same old me again, but I'll throw the mantra in there and hope for the best, you see. But that's not the way to use these bijams, because these bijams are in your mantras. Om Namah Shivaya has at least 2 bijams in it, and so forth. She says further, the Master himself taught me all the mantras, their inner meaning, along with their respective deities. He gave me mantras possessing great power. They are all imbued with the power of renunciation. You want free of this mess called the world. And if that's not obvious to you by now, then I don't know when it will become obvious. Freedom from rebirth, freedom from embodiment, freedom from suffering, freedom from ignorance, all of those things go together. And the freeing part of it is in wisdom and mantra. If you put the mantra, bija mantra, together with jnana yoga, then your ignorance cannot last that for very long. Just like a house cannot resist fire, burning it down. So that's what Krishna says, nahi gyanena sadrisham pavitram iha vidyate, in the Gita. There's no purifier like wisdom. Put that in there, and then love will come forth. Whereas blocked before because of ignorance. And that was all due to ignorance introducing you to the realm of renunciation, or call it non-attachment, if you like. Oh, I was so attached to those things. As soon as I gave them up, I was so relieved. People, even in ordinary life, have that experience. That's why Holy Mother, I was reading her the other day, and she said, no, people can't even give up their attachment to a dented brass pot like that. So then she went on further and said, then how could they possibly think of giving up the entire world if they can't give up a dented brass pot? So in that way, we find that she's encouraging us towards mature renunciation. Immature renunciation, you see that sometimes in people and even in monastics. That's not what's meant by true renunciation. It's not aversion to the world. It's getting rid of the ego-produced world and embracing the world that Mother's standing on. You see, her feet are standing on. She says further, power passes through the mantra. The guru's goes to the disciple, and the disciple's goes to the guru. So where guru-shishya relationship is involved, that exchange is very, very important. And that's going to break down karmas of all kinds, like is listed here, the 3 types of karma, right? So those 3 types of karma, agami and prarabdha and sanchita, are plus kriyamani, there's a 4th kind. All of those kinds of karma will get neutralized, leave the field blank for you. That's opening up the field the way Kundalini Shakti wants to see it, so she can invade it. See, I'm not coming there till you break down that, and break down that, and break down that. Oh, now it's there? I'm water. You see, she floods the whole thing, floods the whole plains with water. Everything that was a drought before is now underwater, as Sri Ramakrishna said, and water all around on all sides. So beautiful, such a vision. He liked dreams about water. Finally, inquire from the guru about the meaning of the mantra. I mean, you can get the meaning of the mantra and still be short of the meaning of the bijam, right? So that's why we're putting out charts like this now in this particular time when Vedanta is in its 2nd century of being here in America and moving on to a 700 or 800 or 900 year rise, Vivekananda predicted. It'll take over slowly. People will begin to see it as the truth connected with the Adidaiva Vidya and put that together, and they'll begin to free themselves with it. That's the point of wisdom, is to destroy ignorance. So find out the meaning of the mantra, don't forget the bijam, then repeat it with devotion, and the mind will become steady. In this particular 9 sloka Upanishad, we read the 9th. The songs of praise dwell in the highest sphere, where dwell all the divinities. What rik will he do who knows not this? They who know this well, they dwell all right, because this is the secret science. They're not long on words for ending. So they bring it talking about, this particular song of divinity that has just been sung to you in 9 slokas, that dwells in the highest sphere. You're going to have to go looking for that. It's not something that's handed out or bantered about like greens and fish in a marketplace. You've got to go to certain divine company and where these things are being understood and discoursed about, because that dwells in the highest sphere. First point he makes. Second is that that's where all the divinities dwell. So if you're not finding many divinities here, which you're probably not, people fastened by the billions to the 5 elements and the objects of pleasure and coming up with dissatisfaction with it all, then you must rise. As we said, turn your mind with the use of the mantra and the bijam and find the divinities within you. That's very much a part of the involution. You can say evolution, oh, we need to add involution. Okay, I did that. It's part of my mind. Now walk the path of involution and find all the deities inside of yourself. The kingdoms of heaven lie within you, and so do all the gods that abide in them. So that's a second point he makes to end. And then he says, what rik will he do who knows not this? So Bahvricha means pretty much rik, Veda. And so it's like, what dharmically oriented action will anyone possibly do if they don't know this supreme science? They can do good actions. What's the word? uh, uh, in the Samkhya Yoga.
Oh, good acts of stupefaction.
Yeah, thank you. Good acts of stupefaction, Kapila says. There are bad acts of stupefaction and good acts of stupefaction. So it pertains here. They who know this well, they dwell all right. Know what? That anyone who is just doing good actions randomly is not in the know about the secret science. So what is better to do? Do them consciously, grounded in the Divine Mother. She's the holder of the secret science, the science of Shri, which we studied last week. So that's a 9 sloka Upanishad, right in the Rig Veda, right at the early part of the 108 Upanishads that we come to here to close our class today. So here, let's end with a chant and move on towards our retreat on the Power and Words coming up on the Columbia River Gorge in a couple weeks. Om Brahmanandam Shivam Shantam Premarupam Niranjanam Yogisham Adbhutam Nityam Akandadvaitalakshinam Vijnanam Trigunatitam Torah Beta Samgitam Subodham Shardam Vivekashashi Bhushanam Jananim Sharanam Devim Ramakrishnam Jagadgurum Pado Padme Toya Shritva Pranamami Mahor Mahor Pranamami Mahor O Ramakrishna, teacher of all, Om Sharada, goddess divine, in bosom holding those lotus feet, salutations to both, ever be of mine. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Hari Om.